My name is Leo Miller, and I was a perfectly ordinary corporate drone. 1 second, I was 72 hours deep into a death march project for my company. The next, everything went black. I'd officially worked myself to death at my cubicle. I thought that was the end, but it turned out to be another beginning. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in a living room so opulent it could rival a palace. Seated across from me was a middle-aged couple, impeccably dressed and radiating an air of quiet power. They looked at me with a complex storm of emotions. 2 decades of affection, undisguised guilt, and a sliver of detachment that felt chillingly final. A flood of memories that weren't mine poured into my brain. I, Leo Miller, had been transported into a novel. Specifically, I was now a character in a trashy, old-school melodrama called The Billionaire's Runaway Bride, and I was the cannon fodder. The fake heir who'd been accidentally switched at birth with one of the male leads. The real heir, Cole Harrison. According to the original plot, today was the day that I, the fake young master who had been coddled and raised in luxury by the Harrison family for 20 years, was exposed. Meanwhile, the true Harrison heir was, at this very moment, slinging bricks and sweating bullets on some forgotten construction site. The couple before me were my adoptive parents, William Harrison, chairman of the Harrison Group, and his wife, Susan. In the original story, upon learning the truth, the character I now inhabited couldn't handle the fall from a life of privilege to a world of grit. His mind twisted. He grew to despise the real heir, Cole, and used every dirty, underhanded trick in the book to frame and suppress him. In the end, not only did he fail to reclaim anything, but he was also completely disowned by his adoptive parents and thrown out of the house. His story ended tragically, killed in a car crash on a rainy night, a textbook casualty of a billionaire family feud. Leo, Susan, my nominal mother, spoke first, her voice strained. Her eyes were red, her words laced with pain. You know what's happened. We, the Harrisons, have wronged you, and more than that, we've wronged our real son. Beside her, William sighed and pushed a check across the marble coffee table. This is $5 million. His voice was deep and commanding. Consider it compensation from our family for the last 20 years. Take the money and leave. We'll tell everyone we sent you abroad to study. $5 million. Severance pay. This was the trigger that sent the original Leo spiraling into self-destruction. I stared at the thin piece of paper, then at their pained expressions that screamed, "This hurts us, but we have to do it." But I felt none of the rage, resentment, or bitterness the original character would have felt. All I felt was pure, unadulterated ecstasy. $5 million. I get $5 million for doing absolutely nothing. Does life get any better than this? Back in the 21st century, I'd ground my liver into dust for a pathetic monthly salary and still ended up dead. Now, all I had to do was nod my head to receive $5 million and achieve financial freedom. I could travel the world, live a life of leisure, and become a happy, professional slacker. This wasn't a tragedy. This was a winning lottery ticket. A goddamn windfall of epic proportions. I fought to keep the corners of my mouth from curving into a maniacal grin, forcing myself to look sad, dejected, to fit the role of the abandoned fake heir. I lowered my head, my shoulders trembling slightly as I let out a series of suppressed giggles disguised as sobs. "Dad, Mom," I began, my voice choked with feigned hurt and reluctance. I understand. I don't blame you. Finding your real son, it's a wonderful thing. I've always wanted to go out and prove myself anyway. It's just hard to leave you." Seeing me act so understanding, the guilt in William and Susan's eyes deepened. Susan even covered her mouth and began to cry softly. "My dear boy, my sweet boy, it's all my fault." "Mom, don't say that." I walked over and gave her a gentle hug. Then, with a magnanimous air of someone who viewed money as nothing more than dirt, I pushed the check back toward them. "I can't take this," I said. "You raised me for 20 years. That's a debt I can never repay. Now that my brother is back, after he's suffered for so long, this money should go to him, as compensation." William and Susan were completely stunned by my noble speech. They probably never expected that I, the spoiled, pampered son they had raised, would react not with a tantrum, but with such understanding, thoughtfulness, and heartbreaking maturity. "No, you have to take this." William's tone was more resolute than ever. "We owe it to you." "He's right, Leo. Please, take it. Otherwise, I'll never have a moment's peace." Susan pleaded through her tears. I looked at them and demurred a few more times. Finally, under their insistent pressure, I reluctantly pocketed the $5 million check. All right, scene over. Money secured. Now, for the first step in realizing my dream of becoming a professional slacker. Dad, Mom, I said, looking at them with a sincere, hopeful smile. Since we're family, shouldn't we immediately, right this second, go and bring my brother, who's suffering on that construction site, home? We should give him the grandest, warmest welcome we possibly can. It's his turn to finally enjoy and inherit this outrageous fortune. William and Susan stared into my shining eyes, which brimmed with concern for my brother. Once again, they were moved to tears by my selfless, brotherly love. Meanwhile, my inner voice was screaming, "Hurry, bring him back. Let him inherit the family fortune. Let him deal with all the corporate backstabbing. Let him take my place at work. I just want to take my $5 million and my future allowance and travel the world. Brother, my dear brother, your loving, layabout younger brother is coming to bring you home to inherit your billions of dollars and billions of problems." My speech left William and Susan deeply moved, tears streaming down their faces. They immediately instructed the butler to prepare a grand family reunion dinner and ordered the staff to completely redecorate the master suite, which had been mine, to welcome its true owner. And I, of course, eagerly volunteered for the glorious and vital mission of finding my long-lost brother. "Dad, Mom, you two should stay here," I said righteously, declining their offer to come along. "My brother has suffered for 20 years. Seeing you both so suddenly might be overwhelming for him. It's better if I go, as his younger brother. We're from the same generation. We can communicate more easily." What I was really thinking was, hell no, the two of you, dripping with generational wealth and rolling up to a construction site in a Rolls-Royce? The optics are terrible. You'll scare my brother off. And where am I supposed to find another perfect fall guy? William and Susan agreed that my reasoning was sound and entrusted the entire matter to me. They gave me the address and sent me off with David, their most discreet driver, in the family's most understated car, a black Mercedes S-Class that still cost a few $100,000. Sinking into the plush leather of the back seat, I sipped an iced fruit juice as the cityscape flew by. I'd never felt so content. So this was the life of the rich? Simple and joyful. The car headed west, leaving the bustling heart of the city behind. The scenery grew progressively more desolate. Skyscrapers gave way to low-slung warehouses, and pristine asphalt turned into cratered dirt roads. Finally, the Mercedes pulled to a stop before the dusty entrance of a massive construction site. A large sign hung over the gate, Sterling Point Waterfront Project, Site Office. I remembered from the novel that this was a real estate project owned by the Harrison Group. Incredible. The real heir was doing manual labor on his own family's construction site. The irony was thick enough to choke on. I got out, told David to wait for me, and walked alone into a world of sweat and dust, a place completely alien to the life I had known just hours before. The air thrummed with the roar of machinery. Workers in mud-caked uniforms and hard hats toiled under the blazing sun. Dressed in my spotless designer casuals, I stuck out like a sore thumb. My presence immediately drew stares. Everyone looked me over with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. I ignored them and walked straight up to a foreman who was directing a crane. "Excuse me, sir," I asked politely. "I'm looking for someone named Cole Harrison. Is he here?" The foreman, a swarthy man, eyed me up and down, his gaze wary. "What do you want with him?" "I'm his brother." I flashed what I hoped was my most harmless and sincere smile. The foreman blinked, clearly taken aback by the appearance of this supposed brother. He pointed toward a half-finished building nearby, a towering skeleton of concrete and rebar. "Over there, 17th floor, hauling cement. He's new, just started today. Kid's a hard worker." I thanked him and headed for the building. The construction elevator wasn't installed yet, so I had to take the stairs. By the time I reached the 17th floor, panting for breath, I saw him immediately. Cole. He was wearing a faded gray t-shirt, so worn it was hard to tell its original color, and work pants splattered with grime. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his muscles lean and powerful from years of physical labor. He was shirtless at the moment, a heavy bag of cement resting easily on his shoulder. Beads of sweat glistened on his tanned skin, sparkling in the sunlight. His features were sharp and chiseled, and there was indeed a strong resemblance to my so-called father, William Harrison. But his eyes were completely different. They were the eyes of a wolf, wary, tough, and fiercely stubborn. When he saw me, he paused. He lowered the bag of cement, his brow furrowing as he watched me, an intruder who clearly didn't belong. I paid no mind to his hostile gaze and walked right up to him. I looked at his face, handsome despite the exhaustion, and then at his hands, calloused from the rough cement bags. A wave of indescribable excitement and kinship washed over me. My family, my dear brother, the man who will shield me from all the storms of the corporate world and let me live my life as a professional slacker. My very own flesh and blood. I could no longer contain my excitement. I surged forward and grabbed his hand. Cole's body went rigid. His eyes turned even more guarded, more dangerous. He probably thought I was some rich kid looking for trouble. But my next words left him completely and utterly stunned. With a voice full of heartbreak, guilt, and the joy of reunion, I said, "Bro, my own brother, I've finally found you. Stop hauling bricks. Come on, come home with me. We have a multi-billion-dollar fortune waiting for you to inherit, and a whole mess of backstabbing family drama for you to sort out. This outrageous fortune. It's finally your turn to inherit it all. Cole?" He stared at me, and for the first time, those wolf-like eyes mirrored the same blank confusion I'd seen on his father's face. He probably thought his long-lost brother was a little unhinged. Somehow, I managed to half-drag, half-cajole Cole down from the building. The entire way, he remained stonily silent. His body coiled with a high level of alertness. His sharp eyes never left me, as if trying to determine whether I was a con artist or a lunatic. When he saw the expensive black Mercedes parked by the gate and the respectfully waiting driver, David, his suspicion deepened. "Get in, bro," I said, enthusiastically holding the door open for him. He didn't move. He just stared at me coldly. "What do you really want?" "To take you home," I said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Look, Cole, I know you must have a million questions right now, but please trust me. I mean, you no harm. Once we get home, everything will make sense." Maybe it was my overly sincere, Oscar-worthy performance that convinced him, or maybe he just figured he had nothing left to lose. He finally ducked his head and slid into the luxury car, a stark contrast to his current appearance. The car pulled away from the construction site smoothly. The atmosphere inside was a bit awkward. Cole leaned against the window, watching in silence as the gritty landscape gave way to increasingly polished and affluent scenery. His body was tense, like a panther ready to pounce. I, on the other hand, was busy planning the perfect, grand power transition ceremony for our arrival. An hour later, the car glided into an exclusive, tree-lined gated community. It finally stopped in front of a colossal, castle-like mansion complete with sprawling gardens and a fountain. Cole stared at the kind of house he'd only ever seen in movies, and for the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed his face. The car door was opened. A crowd was already gathered on the front steps. At the head of the group stood my nominal parents, William and Susan Harrison. Behind them were a dozen or so uniformly dressed staff members, the butler, maids, gardeners. Everyone stared with a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and a touch of apprehension as Cole, dressed in his worn-out work clothes and still smudged with dirt, emerged from the car. The moment Susan saw Cole's face, so strikingly similar to her husband's, she broke down, covering her mouth with her hand as she began to sob. William's eyes reddened as well. He took a step forward, his lips trembling, wanting to say something but unable to find the words. "Dad, Mom," I said, expertly breaking the tension of the touching, an incredibly awkward reunion. I pulled a still-dazed Cole over to them. Then I cleared my throat and, in a loud, solemn voice befitting a master of ceremonies, announced to everyone present, "I hereby declare the official homecoming ceremony for the true heir of the Harrison family, my long-lost brother, Mr. Cole Harrison, has now begun." I started clapping enthusiastically. The butler and staff quickly caught on, joining in with a round of warm applause. Amid the clapping, William and Susan completely lost their composure. They rushed forward, each grabbing one of Cole's hands, tears streaming down their faces. "My boy, my dear boy, you've suffered so much. You're home. You're finally home." And Cole, the tough guy who could haul 200-pound bags of cement without breaking a sweat, looked utterly helpless in the face of this sudden, 2 decades late outpouring of affection. His body was still stiff, his eyes filled with confusion and a flicker of longing he couldn't quite hide. I watched this tearful family reunion with a satisfied nod. Excellent. Step 1, a complete success. Next up, Part 2 of the ceremony. The transition of power. I led them into the gilded living room. Then, in front of everyone, I began moving my things one by one out of the master suite that rightfully belonged to the real heir. Bro, this is your room. It has its own walk-in closet, study, and bathroom. The view is the best in the whole house. Next, I went to the garage and returned with a long chain of keys, at least a dozen of them, for a fleet of luxury cars, and pressed them into Cole's hands. Bro, this is your garage. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Rolls-Royce. Drive whichever one you want. Oh, and by the way, that red Ferrari was a birthday present from Dad last year. I've barely driven it. It's yours now. Finally, I got the ultimate symbol of the Harrison heir's status from my dad's study, the unlimited black card, and presented it to Cole with great solemnity. Bro, this is your card. Swipe it for whatever you want. The pin is your birthday, which, well, is also my birthday. After finishing all this, I clapped my hands together, feeling a great weight lift off my shoulders. I looked at the dumbfounded Cole and my equally dumbfounded adoptive parents and gave them a gratified smile, as if I had just completed a noble mission. Dad, Mom, bro, I said, everything is now back where it belongs. From now on, this family is in my brother's hands. As for me, I'm planning to take that little severance package you gave me and travel the world. Find myself, eat, pray, love. So, I guess this is goodbye. I said my piece and was about to make a dashing exit, but a rough, powerful hand suddenly grabbed my wrist. I turned to meet Cole's deep, complex, wolf-like eyes. Wait, he said, his voice raspy but filled with an authority that could not be denied. Until I figure all of this out, you're not going anywhere. Me? Huh. The script. Something's not right with the script. In the end, my grand retirement was not to be. Pinned by Cole's unwavering gaze and my adoptive parents' tearful pleas of Leo, you can't leave, this is your home too. I, the former fake heir, had to graciously agree to stay, for now, in one of the guest rooms. The family dinner that night was so awkward you could have carved the tension with a steak knife. The long dining table, which could easily seat 20, held just the 4 of us. Susan, my mom, kept piling food onto Cole's plate, as if trying to make up for 20 years of missed gourmet meals in a single sitting. Cole, darling, try this Australian Wagyu. I had the chef cook it medium rare, just for you. Cole, this Alaskan king crab is incredibly fresh. Eat up. Cole, this bouillabaisse. I had Mrs. Peterson working on it all afternoon. It's very nourishing. Cole's plate soon resembled a small mountain. He just kept his head down, silently navigating the knife and fork with a slow, unfamiliar technique. It was painfully obvious he wasn't used to this kind of formal dining. His face showed no joy, only a profound sense of alienation and discomfort. Meanwhile, my dad, William, tried to engage him with a paternal tone about his future career development. Cole, you've worked hard out there. Starting tomorrow, you don't have to go back to the construction site. I'll have your uncle Evan set you up with a vice president position at the company. You can start by getting familiar with the business. The hand holding the fork tightened in Cole's grip. He looked up, a flash of cold mockery in his wolfish eyes. He probably saw it as just another condescending handout from the upper class. Just as this reunion dinner was about to devolve into a full-blown class conflict disaster, I, the reluctant social lubricant, had to step in again. I put down my silverware and cleared my throat. Ahem. All eyes turned to me. First, I shot my parents a look that said, "You guys are doing this all wrong." Then, I turned to Cole and began my live-action tutorial on the Billionaire Survival Guide. Bro, I said, in a tone so natural you'd think we'd known each other for 20 years. First off, the steak. If you think it's overcooked or just not your thing, just tell Mrs. Peterson. Have her make you something else, like a cheeseburger. Remember, in this house, your taste is the only standard that matters. I gestured to the mountain of food on his plate. Second, Mom's enthusiasm. Think of it as a loving burden. If you don't want to eat something, just politely move it to the side plate. Don't force yourself, or she'll give you even more tomorrow. Susan's face flushed slightly. Finally, I looked at my dad. Dad, my brother just got here. He doesn't know the first thing about the company. Making him a VP isn't a promotion. It's throwing him to the wolves. None of those old sharks at the office will respect him. They'll just see him as the crown prince, who fell out of the sky and find a million ways to trip him up. I continued, It would be better to have him start as your special assistant. He can shadow you, listen, observe, and learn. That way, he can get up to speed on the company quickly and build some real authority. What do you think? William paused. Then his expression shifted to one of approval. It was clear he felt the son, who'd been by his side for 20 years, understood him better. After my speech, a strange silence fell over the dining room. Cole looked up and gave me a long, deep look. The wariness and hostility in his eyes had faded, replaced by curiosity and confusion. He probably couldn't figure out why I, the fake heir whose life and identity he had just usurped, would be so sincerely looking out for him. Of course I was looking out for him. My dear brother, if you don't properly take over this family, get a handle on the company, and put all the vipers in their place, how am I supposed to peacefully enjoy my life as a slacker? You, my friend, are my single greatest guarantee for a comfortable early retirement. Bro, I said, flashing him a brilliant smile brimming with brotherly affection. From now on, if there's anything you don't understand around here, just ask me. After all, I leaned in and whispered, so only the two of us could hear. When it comes to how to be a proper Harrison heir, I've got 20 years of hands-on experience. Satisfaction guaranteed, or your money back. Cole stared at me, and the hard, tense line of his jaw seemed to, for the first time, soften just a fraction. After that awkward dinner, my status in the Harrison household became peculiar. I was no longer the official young master, but it seemed no one treated me like an outsider either. My adoptive parents, William and Susan, were still full of guilt and affection for me, perhaps even more indulgent than before. They were terrified that Cole's return would make me feel neglected, and Cole, the true heir, had shifted his attitude from initial suspicion and hostility to a complex, curious kind of acceptance. He accepted my continued presence in the house. He accepted me acting like a senior advisor, giving him tutorials on billionaire living. He also accepted my daily routine of doing absolutely nothing. I, in turn, was happy to settle in and begin my life as a non-executive member of the billionaire family. The first thing I did was conduct a thorough returning of property ceremony. I voluntarily moved out of the palatial master suite on the 3rd floor, a 2,000 square foot behemoth, and into a guest room on the 2nd floor that was a mere 1,000 square feet, but had equally great sunlight. Bro, I said, giving Cole a tour of his future royal chambers. See this? Dad had an Italian designer do this room. All the furniture was flown in from Europe. That bed is the same model the Swedish royal family uses. It supposedly adjusts its firmness automatically based on your sleeping position. And this walk-in closet, I pushed open a hidden door, is bigger than my entire old apartment. Mom stocked it with all the latest haute couture for you. Though, honestly, most of the styles are questionable. But don't worry, I've already blacklisted her taste. I'll help you pick out your clothes from now on. Cole looked at the room full of opulent clothing, most of which he didn't even recognize the brand names of. Then down at his own t-shirt, washed clean by the maids but still faded from its construction site days. He said nothing. Next, I took him down to the garage. The massive, climate-controlled space housed a fleet of steel beasts that would make any man's heart race. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Rolls-Royces, Bentleys. I pressed a heavy ring with at least a dozen keys into his hand. Bro, these are all yours now, I announced with a grand wave of my hand. Drive whichever you want. Though personally, I'd recommend starting with the Mercedes G-Wagon. High chassis, built like a tank. Oh, right, that red Ferrari F8 was my 18th birthday present from Dad last year. I've barely driven it. It's officially yours now. The engine roar is insane. Perfect for picking up girls. Cole held the heavy keys, staring at the supercars he'd only ever seen in magazines and online. A complex light flickered in his eyes. Finally, I took him to the study. From a drawer in William's desk, I retrieved the thin but incredibly weighty symbol of the Harrison heir's ultimate power, the unlimited credit black card. With a solemn and sacred air, I placed the card in his hand. Bro, take it, I said, patting his shoulder. Pin is your birthday, which is also my birthday. From now on, you call the shots in this house. Buy whatever you want. Don't worry about saving money for anyone. After all, I added meaningfully, all this money was always yours to begin with. With that done, I felt as if I had completed a holy rite of power transfer. My whole being felt lighter. I was ready to turn and walk away, to finally embrace my life of leisure. Wait, Cole said suddenly, stopping me. He looked at me, his deep eyes filled with confusion. Why? He asked, the question he'd clearly been holding back. Why are you doing all this? Don't you hate me? I took everything from you. Your parents, your home, your identity. I looked at him, at his guarded and bewildered face, and suddenly broke into a smile. Bro, I said, you've got one thing wrong. You didn't take anything from me. You just took back what was always supposed to be yours. As for me, I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. I'm just returning things to their rightful owner. Besides, I leaned in close, whispering so only he could hear. To be honest, being the Harrison heir is exhausting. You have to learn horseback riding, golf, 8 different languages, and deal with so many fake relatives and business partners. I've wanted to quit for ages. It's great that you're back. From now on, all that trouble is your problem. You've got this, bro. My life as a professional slacker depends on you. I finished with a firm, encouraging pat on his shoulder. Cole stared at me, at my eyes shining with sincerity and the unmistakable light of someone who genuinely just wants to do nothing. He was silent for a long, long time. Finally, from the ring of keys, he picked out the one for the Ferrari F8. Then, from his own wallet, he took out the black card. He pushed both items back into my hands. This car is still yours. This card is a supplementary one. No limit. From now on, you're still the second son of the Harrison family. And as long as I'm here, you always will be. He finished, and before I could react, he turned and walked out of the study, leaving me alone, holding a car key and a black card, completely and utterly dumbfounded. The script is wrong again. I don't want to be the second son. I just want to be a regular, unremarkable slacker who gets an allowance. Although my plan for a complete retirement was temporarily derailed by Cole's forceful intervention, I still managed to live the slacker life I had always dreamed of. My days consisted of waking up whenever I felt like it, then pondering which supercar to grace with my presence or which credit card to use for a lavish afternoon tea befitting my new status as second son of the Harrison family. Meanwhile, my dear brother Cole officially entered the Harrison group the very next day, beginning his grueling life as the heir and a corporate drone. He started as a special assistant to his father, William, a position I had suggested. The goal was to allow him to quickly and comprehensively understand the entire corporation's operations, as well as the treacherous undercurrents lurking beneath the surface. And the biggest undercurrent of all was our dear Uncle Evan. Evan Harrison was William's younger brother and the vice president of the Harrison Group. In the original novel, he was an ambitious hypocrite with a smile that hid a dagger. He had always coveted the chairman's seat, viewing me, the adopted son, as a thorn in his side, and seeing the suddenly returned Cole as both his greatest threat and his greatest opportunity. He planned to exploit Cole's unfamiliarity with the family and the company, constantly setting traps and creating trouble to prove Cole was unfit for the role, thereby shaking William's position and seizing power for himself. Sure enough, on the 3rd day of Cole's new job, Uncle Evan came calling. He arrived at our house that evening carrying 2 bottles of expensive red wine. "William, Susan," he boomed, his face wreathed in a warm, enthusiastic smile. "I heard Cole was back, so I had to come see for myself. This boy is the spitting image of you when you were young, William." He affectionately grabbed Cole's hand, showering him with pleasantries, playing the part of a loving, doting elder. "Cole, my boy, I'm your Uncle Evan. From now on, if there's anything you don't understand at the company, you just come and ask me. Don't you be a stranger." Cole just nodded curtly and pulled his hand away. He had a natural distrust for overly effusive people. Evan didn't seem to mind. He turned his smiling face to me. "Leo's here too." A flicker of contempt and calculation passed through his eyes. "I hear you haven't been to the office lately? Just resting at home? That's good. Young people should relax more." I leaned back on the sofa and yawned. "You got it, Uncle Evan. My brother's back, so the family's in his hands now. I can finally retire and enjoy life." "Exactly." Evan slapped his thigh as if he'd found a kindred spirit. "Cole is the rightful heir of the Harrison family. You, Leo, just enjoy your life of leisure. From now on, Uncle Evan will look out for you." As he spoke, he gave me a subtle, knowing look. I got the message immediately. He was trying to recruit me. He assumed that I, the fake heir who'd had his identity stolen, must be consumed by resentment and bitterness. He wanted to use me to undermine Cole. In the original novel, this was exactly how he'd manipulated the original Leo, turning him into the sharpest and dumbest knife in his arsenal. Unfortunately for him, he was dealing with me today. I looked at his smiling, scheming face and sneered inwardly. But on the surface, I immediately put on a complex expression of being flattered, mixed with a hint of resentment and unwillingness. "Thank you, Uncle Evan." I lowered my head, my voice tinged with hurt. You're the only one who's still nice to me." Seeing he had a bite, Evan's smile grew even more fatherly. At the dinner table, he went into overdrive. He started by casually mentioning Cole's glorious days hauling cement, his words dripping with false praise, while actually reminding everyone that Cole was just an unsophisticated laborer. Then, with feigned concern, he started asking about the difficulties Cole was facing at the company. "Cole, I heard you rejected the budget for the Southside project yesterday?" he asked, as if it were a passing thought. Cole frowned and nodded. "Oh, you're still too young," Evan said, adopting the tone of a wise, experienced elder. "The head of that project has been with your father for decades. He's a bit stubborn. Doing that will alienate our most loyal people. A young man has to learn to be flexible, to understand the importance of relationships." His words were perfectly crafted and seemingly flawless. They simultaneously soured the relationship between Cole and the company's veterans and painted Cole as someone who was immature and reckless. My father, William, actually frowned, clearly swayed by the argument. Just as Cole was about to swallow his first bitter pill, I, his pain in the ass brother, had to step in once again. I put down my fork and asked, with wide-eyed innocence, "Uncle Evan, I'm a little confused. My brother is the special assistant to the chairman. Isn't his job to help Dad and protect the company's interests? If he approves a clearly flawed budget just because he's afraid of offending someone, then what's the difference between him and those corrupt parasites who only care about lining their own pockets? Isn't my brother actually doing what's best for the company and for Dad?" My childishly naive words silenced the entire dining room. The cheerful smile on Uncle Evan's face froze for the first time, and Cole looked up and gave me a long, deep look. In his eyes, there was a flicker of something he himself might not have noticed. A smile. Uncle Evan's little scheme was completely torpedoed by his naive nephew's simple questions. He left in a huff, his plans thwarted. After that incident, Cole's attitude toward me shifted again. He was no longer just tolerating my presence. He began to actively approach me. He would come to my room after work, ostensibly to check on his little brother. But in reality, he would lay out all the thorny issues he was facing at the company and consult with me, the former heir. "Uncle Evan is pushing for his preferred contractor for the West End real estate project. Dad seems to be leaning that way. What do you think? The new marketing director is one of Evan's guys. His recent proposals are all flash and no substance. How do I shut them down without looking like I'm targeting him? At next week's board meeting, Evan and his allies are definitely going to make a move. What should I prepare for?" He had come to see me as his secret strategist, and I was more than happy to play the part. After all, the more stable his position, the more secure my leisurely life as a non-executive family member would be. So, every day, I'd sit around playing video games and drinking soda, casually dispensing wisdom from my God's-eye view of the novel's plot. "Bro, whatever you do, don't let Evan's people touch the West End project," I said, my eyes glued to the screen. "According to the plot, that contractor is a shell company. Evan wants to use the project to launder company funds into his own pocket. Send someone you trust to check their financials right now. I guarantee you'll find something. Don't worry about the marketing director," I added, taking a sip of Coke. "He won't be around for long. He's secretly embezzling funds to support a mistress and has a gambling problem. Get Ray, my dad's head of security and most trusted man, to look into it. In 3 days, you'll have enough dirt to bury him and Uncle Evan along with him." As for the board meeting, I yawned. "Relax, bro. I've already prepared a big gift for them." Cole listened to my masterful analysis, his gaze growing deeper and more perplexed. He couldn't figure out how I, the good-for-nothing playboy who had spent 20 years doing nothing but enjoying life, could have such an intimate knowledge of the company's complex politics and business traps. Where was I getting my information? Was there someone else backing me? "Leo," he finally asked, unable to hold back any longer. "Who? Are you, really?" I was at a critical point in my game. "I'm your brother," I answered without looking up. "I mean," he said, his voice more forceful. "Where are you getting all this information?" "Oh, that." I finally tore my eyes away from the screen, turned to him, and flashed a mysterious smile. "Bro, have you ever heard of a little thing called Talent. I happen to be one of those once-in-a-generation business prodigies. I may not be in the game, but the game is full of legends about me. Cole? He looked at my deadpan expression as I spouted nonsense, feeling as though his intelligence had just been deeply insulted. But he had to admit, every piece of advice I gave was so accurate it was like I could see the future, just as we were having our brotherly exchange of corporate secrets. My mom, Susan, walked in with a platter of sliced fruit. "What are you two whispering about now?" she asked, smiling warmly at us. Her eyes were full of contentment. Nothing made her happier than seeing her two sons, one biological, one adopted, getting along so well. She set the fruit down and then handed us two gold-embossed invitations. "Next weekend is the charity gala hosted by the Armstrongs. All the city's elite will be there. I want both of you to come with me and meet some people." The moment I heard the word gala, my head started to ache. I despised those kinds of fake, superficial social events. I was about to refuse, but Cole beat me to it. He took the invitations, glanced at me and said coolly, "Fine, we'll go. But, Mom, I have one condition. I get to personally pick out Leo's suit for the evening." Me? I looked at his unyielding expression and suddenly had a very bad feeling. This guy, he's not planning to get revenge on me, is he? My bad feeling was quickly confirmed. The day before the charity gala, Cole had a suit delivered to my room. It was, without a doubt, a fashion disaster. It was a flamboyant, hot pink suit, complete with gigantic ruffles and lace trim. Wearing it, I felt less like I was attending a high society event and more like I was auditioning to be the new mascot for a flamingo-themed car wash. "Bro, are you serious?" I asked, staring at the walking flamingo in the mirror. My aesthetic sensibilities had been grievously wounded. "Yes," Cole said, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. He watched me with amusement, a faint, dark smile playing on his lips. "I think it suits you. It's very vibrant." Me? I finally got it. This guy was getting his revenge. Revenge for me calling the Lamborghini he gave me an ugly color. This man's pettiness knew no bounds. But am I, Leo Miller, the kind of person who backs down easily? Of course not. So what if I look like a flamingo? If I'm not embarrassed, then the ones who should be embarrassed are everyone else. So, on the night of the gala, not only did I bravely don the hot pink battle armor, but I also accessorized with a matching pair of hot pink sunglasses and a rhinestone-encrusted walking stick. When I entered the ballroom on the arm of my devastatingly handsome brother, who was dressed in a sleek, understated custom-tailored suit, we instantly became the center of attention. Every eye in the room locked onto us like a spotlight. Their gazes were a mix of shock, confusion, ridicule, and a hint of pity. I could clearly hear the whispers around us. "Oh my God, is that the younger Harrison boy? What happened to him? I heard he's the fake one. Maybe getting kicked out of the main family line drove him crazy? Look at the one next to him, that must be the real heir. He has such an air about him. Too bad he's stuck with a brother like that. How embarrassing." I felt the muscles in Cole's arm tense. He probably hadn't expected that his attempt to embarrass me would result in him becoming a laughingstock as well. The poor guy stuck babysitting his crazy brother. He wanted to make a fool of me, but instead we both became fools together. A true Pyrrhic victory. I could feel his grip on my arm tighten. I turned my head and gave him a brilliant smile that said, "Don't worry, bro, I got this." His expression darkened even further. Just then, our dear Uncle Evan glided toward us, a wine glass in hand and a smirk on his face. Trailing him was a shifty-eyed man I recognized as his lackey, Mr. Keller, the manager in charge of that problematic Southside project. Well, if it isn't Cole and Leo," Evan said, his eyes lingering on my pink suit for a full 3 seconds, his amusement almost overflowing. "Leo, your outfit tonight is certainly unique." "You're too kind, Uncle Evan," I said, adjusting my non-existent tie with an air of superiority. "My brother picked it out for me personally. He said it represents the bright, fiery future of our brotherhood." "Cole?" Evan's smile twitched. He ignored me and turned to Cole, putting on a paternal air. "Cole, I heard you rejected the contractor I recommended?" "I did," Cole replied coldly. "Ah, you're still too impulsive." Evan sighed. "Mr. Keller, come here. Why don't you explain to Cole the qualifications and strength of our contractor?" Mr. Keller immediately bowed and scurried forward, launching into a long-winded speech about the glorious history of his shell company. Cole frowned, about to retort, but I suddenly tugged on his sleeve. Then, I stepped in front of him and flashed Mr. Keller an incredibly innocent smile. "Mr. Keller, hello?" I said. "My brother mentioned that the Southside project you're in charge of seems to have a few small problems." Keller's expression changed slightly. "Second young master, you must be joking. The project is proceeding smoothly. Is it?" I blinked, pulled out my phone from my pocket, and played a recording. The audio clearly captured a conversation from a few days ago, which I had accidentally recorded in the study, of him and Uncle Evan discussing how to use inferior materials, cut corners, and cook the books to embezzle company funds. The moment the recording started playing, Mr. Keller's face turned white as a sheet, and the smug smile on Uncle Evan's face finally, completely, cracked. That accidentally recorded conversation detonated like a bomb in the ballroom, though I didn't play it loudly. Several of the tycoons nearby who had been eavesdropping heard every crystal-clear word. Uncle Evan and Mr. Keller's faces turned a shade darker than liver. You're lying. That's a fake," Evan sputtered, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Fake." I put my phone away, my face a mask of innocence. "Uncle Evan, I just thought your conversation with Mr. Keller was so full of business wisdom that I should record it for my own education. Was there something in there that wasn't meant for outsiders to hear?" Evan was shaking with rage, but couldn't muster a single word in his defense. My father, William, who had heard the recording, saw his perpetually stern face darken to a thunderous black. He shot Evan a glacial look, then turned to his assistant. "Go invite Mr. Keller to have a long chat with our internal affairs department." Mr. Keller's legs gave out, and he crumpled to the floor. A scene meticulously orchestrated by our uncle to humiliate Cole in public was thus spectacularly derailed by his flamingo brother in the most absurd way possible. Not only that, but Evan also lost one of his key henchmen. He had lost the battle and the war. After that night, Cole completely let down his guard with me. He seemed to have finally accepted that his brother, while appearing completely unreliable, was someone you could count on when it mattered. He no longer saw me as a suspicious outsider or a problem to be managed. He started to truly see me as his ally and strategist. Every day after work, his first stop was my room, where he would lay out all the company's affairs, big and small, for discussion. Evan's overseas branch has always had suspicious books, but we have no proof. Any ideas? A few of the old board members are Evan's puppets. They're constantly undermining me. How do I get rid of them? Next month, we're bidding on the East Side development plot. Our main competitor is Worthington Corp. Where do you think our opening is? And I, without hesitation, settled comfortably into my role as the Harrison Group's chief unofficial gold medal consultant. I would sit cross-legged on my bed in my silk pajamas, munching on potato chips, and give him an in-depth analysis based on the novel's plot. The overseas branch? Easy. Remember in the book it mentioned that Evan has a mistress, a model? He bought her a winery abroad with company money. Follow that trail, and I guarantee you'll uncover all the evidence of his embezzlement. Those old guys on the board? Even easier. The one named Peterson, his son is drowning in gambling debt. The one named Sullivan, his daughter is desperate to break into Hollywood. And the one named Lee. I leveraged all the minor character details from the book, giving him one precise line of attack after another. As for the East Side plot, I smiled and tossed him a file. "Bro, this is a bidding proposal I put together when I was bored. Take a look. I promise it'll make Worthington Corp. lose so badly they won't even have their underwear left." Cole stared at me, his eyes filled with shock. He picked up the proposal, and after flipping through just a few pages, he was completely won over by my wild creativity and meticulous data analysis. He realized that I, the brother he had always dismissed as a dandy, possessed a terrifyingly sharp business acumen. "Leo." He looked at me, his voice laced with a hint of pride he himself didn't notice. "How did you come up with all this?" "I told you," I said, raising an eyebrow smugly. "I'm a once-in-a-generation business prodigy." Cole looked at my smug face, shook his head helplessly, and smiled. It was a smile free of defenses and calculations. It was a smile of pure, brotherly warmth and trust. I smiled back. I knew that our strange brotherly alliance, from that moment on, was truly unbreakable. With Cole and me working in tandem, Uncle Evan's power base at the company was systematically dismantled. His cronies in various departments were weeded out, either overtly or covertly, for all sorts of legitimate reasons. Several of his seemingly perfect project proposals were shot down by Cole, armed with the spoilers I provided. Evan was severely weakened and had no choice but to lay low, not daring to make any rash moves. Meanwhile, Cole quickly established his authority within the company through his outstanding competence and decisive actions. No one dared to treat him like a hick from a construction site anymore. Everyone knew that the young, true heir was not to be trifled with. The situation at the company had temporarily stabilized. But life in a wealthy family is never just about work. There are also all the excruciating family social obligations. And so, it came to be that my grandmother, the Harrison family matriarch, was celebrating her 80th birthday. The Harrisons were a large clan. Aunts, uncles, and cousins of every degree numbered well over 100. On the day of the birthday banquet, the old Harrison estate was lavishly decorated, filled to the brim with guests, and buzzing with activity. And Cole and I became the main attraction. All the relatives gathered around us, their eyes full of a strange mix of curiosity, scrutiny, and calculation. "Oh my, this must be Cole. You're all grown up. You must have suffered a lot out there, haven't you?" A great aunt in a silk dress and jade bracelet said, patting Cole's hand with false sympathy. "Yes, not like our Leo, who was born with a silver spoon. So refined, you can just tell he was born for a life of luxury." Another distant cousin with a weaselly face chimed in with a backhanded compliment. Their words were a masterclass in passive aggression, each one a needle aimed at Cole's heart. They were reminding him that he, the real heir, was still an outsider, and they were hinting that I, the fake heir, had overstayed my welcome. Cole's expression grew colder. He despised these phony, calculating social gatherings. As for me, I stayed true to my slacker persona. I grabbed a glass of juice, found the most inconspicuous corner, and proceeded to focus intently on a game on my phone. To anyone who tried to talk to me, I responded with a universal quartet of, oh, really? And haha. My defense was impenetrable. However, there are always those who are determined to make a scene. A gaudily dressed female cousin, from which branch of the family, I had no idea, sauntered up to Cole, a wine glass in her hand. "Cousin Cole," she cooed. "I heard you used to work on a construction site? That must have been so hard. Not like our cousin Leo, who's been a young master his whole life, never had to lift a finger." Her words dripped with contempt and provocation. Cole's eyes instantly turned to ice. But the cousin, apparently not satisfied, turned her fire on me. "And you, cousin Leo, you enjoyed cousin Cole's good fortune for 20 years. How can you still have the nerve to linger in the Harrison house? You have some thick skin, don't you?" The moment she said that, the surrounding area fell silent. All the relatives watched us, their eyes alight with the promise of drama. They were waiting for us brothers to turn on each other. I kept my head down, still playing my game, as if I hadn't heard a thing. It wasn't that I didn't want to retaliate, but I knew someone else would be faster. Sure enough, the next second, Cole moved. He took a step forward, his tall frame completely shielding me from view. He looked at the garish cousin, and his wolf-like eyes flashed with a terrifying, glacial light. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like a shard of ice, piercing everyone's ears. "First," he said, "where I worked and what I've been through is none of your business. Second," he paused, his gaze sweeping over all the gossiping relatives. "He, Leo Miller, is my brother. He is, and he always will be. You can talk about me, but you will not talk about him. If anyone dares to say one more disrespectful word to him, don't blame me for forgetting we're family. I'll have them erased from the Harrison family registry." After he spoke, the entire banquet hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The arrogant cousin was so frightened her face turned ghostly white, unable to utter a single word, and I sat behind him, looking at his broad, protective back. For the first time, a strange, warm feeling bloomed in my chest. So this is what it feels like to be protected. It's actually not bad at all.